unconsciously probably you are. You're going to make statements, assumptions.
That's like friends coming to visit us from Lakewood and saying, Ima, we're going to visit our Schwarze Yidden. So Schwarze is a epithet. Now, I don't let people get away with using that term as anything but an epithet. Some people will say it's just the color black, but I can't. Give me one time when you said that was my Schwarze jacket, or this was my Schwarze chair, my Schwarze dining room set that I bought. You use it specifically to refer to people. So I don't let people get away with that. But for kids to come to my home where the parents were friends, and in the schools that they were in Lakewood, the only context that they had for putting this color and the color of my children, who were also supposed to be now their cousins or friends, was Schwarze Yidden. So what does that do? What kind of robbery happened in that community to not give people context for people of color?
Yeah. There's a lot of hurt that happens because of this, what you're all talking about. And I'm wondering, one of the areas that's problematic is dating and marriage. Dating as a person of color inside a mostly white Jewish community, it presents a distinct set of challenges and obstacles. Yavila, what do you think is the biggest obstacle to dating as a Jew of color?
Loaded question. But what I would say is that dating at its best is an opportunity to be respected and loved for who you are. That's for all human beings, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Jew of color or not. For Jews of color, we don't get to see our beauty and our value often reflected in Jewish spaces. One of the biggest challenges is the lack of consciousness within the Jewish community that this is Jewish, that this is the mother of your children, that this is exactly what it looks like to strut your stuff out there as a Jew. Not that this is an opportunity to step down in the hierarchy of privilege within the Jewish community. That this is an opportunity for you to figure out whether your family will accept you, your children, and your grandchildren or not. That's the piece that becomes an obstacle. And I have a daughter who's a teenager right now, and I feel like the biggest obstacle I have with her in raising her is to be able to, number one, help her to see herself as beautiful, to see her African American body, hair, skin, ability, speaking, all of it as beautiful, that it's a beautiful manifestation of who she is as a Jew. Secondarily to that is to help her to be able to tell the difference between what I call the chocolate fantasy that can come at her, which is people walking up to her and they're not interested in her, they're interested in the taste of chocolate. And I'm not going to say much more than that, but that's one obstacle. And the second obstacle to that is that when she goes out into the world and somebody does approach her and want to be with her for who she is, how are they going to be received by the white community?
My husband and I have both been called more than once a race traitor.
Can you say
in
more
the
about
Jewish
that?
community.
From both the Jewish...
from both the Jewish community and the non-Jewish community. Like, how can you be with a white person? This means that you don't like your culture, you don't like where you're coming from. I've had Jewish friends say, you know, I would never date a black person. And I'm clarifying, you would never date somebody who's black and Jewish? No. No, I wouldn't. I actually went to another panel talking about interracial relationships, and people are like, well, how is your interracial relationship received? And I think people stare. I mean, one of the questions I get most often is, how did you two meet? With the face and everything, as if like two space aliens came together, and it's completely insane.
I don't know if any of y'all had to deal with like the matchmakers and, you know, in the whole matchmaking scene, shidduchim, like they say in Hebrew/Yiddish. Like, dealing with matchmakers for me was like just stuff that was appalling. People would say, and I know it's done with other physical characteristics, but, you know, everybody has a black friend. Everybody knows that black girl who goes to so-and-so's synagogue and is friends with so-and-so's cousin, and so they want to set me up with her. And like, I was set up one time. This guy's like, oh, I'm telling you, I get this girl, she's beautiful, she's fantastic, she's making a lot of money, she'll be able to support you in learning. I was like, really, how old is she? Oh, she's great with children, she's fantastic. I was like, no, really, how old is she? Goes on and on about her family and stuff, and she was like 40-something, and I was 21 at the time, and I was like, why would you even say this? And he goes, well, I figured you're black and she's black, so, you know, there's got to be something there.
One thing that I've experienced, we just had our second child in May, and our child's multiracial. And when the child was born, my baby was born, it was they were obsessed with the eyes. So many comments about, oh, the eyes don't look Asian. He's got blonde or brown hair, and it was very offensive. I thought, what's wrong with having the slanted eye thing, and I struggle with how you engage that.
Like, I'm divorced, and something that I noticed with my ex-wife, who we were set up because I converted Hasidic. You're black, you're Hasidic, you're black, you're Hasidic. Oh, praise God that he gave me the opportunity to see that this beautiful couple come together. And that was the only thing that we had in common. And we started arguing at the wedding. But there's this assumption that there's this uniformity of opinion and uniformity of identity and uniformity of everything within the various ethnic communities. So because you're a black Jew, you must therefore think like all black Jews. And all black Jews, there must be the black Jewish experience and the black Jewish perspective. And the taste of chocolate thing, I can't even go there with some of the experience I've had with that. Like girls walk by me, look up me up and down like, and I'm like, you would never do that if your rabbi was standing here.
So there's a fetishization.
Fetishization of black men in the
Exotic monkey.
The very important thing to remember is that what's going on here within the Jewish community is no different than what's going on in the wide world of people who are navigating issues of race. People do not live with one another. Go into any affluent neighborhood, and the majority of people that you're going to bump into are not people of color. You're going to bump into, in majority, white people. And so since Jews in the majority are living in affluent communities across the United States, they are not living on an everyday basis with people of color. The only people of color they're bumping into are the maids. The only people of color that they know are the people that come to drive their cars back and forth from hotels.
Even when people do, for a lot of my friends, I'm their token Hispanic friend. But, we don't have conversations about race on a constant basis, because usually what happens when we start having a conversation about race is that, I realize that a lot of my friends see me as a credit to my race, a special or a representative for all Hispanic people.
Most evolved.
The most evolved, Hispanic person. I obviously came to Judaism to leave those warped cultural values in the African American and Hispanic community.
I think we have to model some kind of process here. I'm not above being judgmental or discriminating. Not to call you out, but I think the piece about affluent Jews is even kind of it's a stereotype. When my father first met my wife, he literally said, Jews are great with money, And we have to also look at ourselves, I think, and say, when we're being too maybe confrontational, or we have our own stuff that we got to deal with as well.
When I was in yeshiva, I once asked one of my rabbis, how should I react to racism? And then he starts giving me a whole spiel about, you have to look past it, you have to be able to forgive people. This idea that you're not supposed to take offense because we're all Jews here.
Except for the ones that have left. And that's where it actually has a consequence. Because for every one of us that are sitting here, there's another Jew of color that has walked out of the Jewish community because it just got to be too much. And I know too many of those people. And so I don't think it's okay to tell people, oh, just take it and carry your peckle gracefully, because there are people who have left.
You raised something really important about identification, right? How does one identify? There wouldn't be a discussion about being a Jew of color without understanding that identifying both as a Jew and a person of color is really crucial. But how do you negotiate that?